Lawmakers in Oregon are once again proving that the state is an anti landlord place by trying to pass a proposal that would force landlords to turn their units into daycares. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of Oregon. Obviously, I've covered Oregon many times because of all the anti landlord proposals that they always seem to be having up there. Okay, so the latest one, this is a little bit different than what I've usually covered in terms of like rent control and eviction protections and free lawyers for tenants, etc. Okay, now they seem to think that all tenants should be allowed to run daycares out of their rental property or out of their rental units without the landlord's permission. They should just be allowed to operate a daycare, a for-profit business out of a landlord's property, and the landlord should have no say in it whatsoever. They think this is a good idea, and my alarm bells are going off because this sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever seen proposed by lawmakers. Like these people have no clue, no concept about anything about, liability and, how businesses are run and the damages that can be caused when you have a tenant operating a full-fledged business within your unit. And you know what? This is dumb. I'm going to say it before I even get to the article. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. What do you think of the government trying to force landlords to be daycare operators, whether they want it or not? Okay? You're going to have children running through your property at a for-profit daycare, whether you want it or not. That's what these lawmakers are bringing to you in the state of Oregon. Give me a break. Anyway, let's get into the article because they have some important details in here, stuff that, oh man, if you live up in Oregon and, even if you're not a landlord, okay, I want you to think of this through a tenant's perspective, okay? You're in an apartment building and you have multiple other tenants in there. And guess what? The person right next door to you is operating a for-profit daycare out of their unit. And it is loud, it is noisy, and you got kids running up and down the hallways, etc. That's what you can look forward to thanks to your dumb lawmakers. This is frustrating. But anyway, let's get into the article. This article is coming from klcc.org, and it says, lawmakers advance a bill to give renters the right to offer in-home child care. Dumb. Just dumb. Oregon lawmakers are advancing a bill that would give renters the right to offer paid child care. The Senate Housing and Development Committee voted unanimously Monday to send Senate Bill 599 to the full Senate for consideration. The bill would require landlords to allow their tenants to offer in-home child care, provided the tenant follows all other state and local regulations. Much of Oregon is experiencing a high demand for child care, which means many parents struggle to find affordable and appropriate care for their children. Yeah, and that should be left up to the landlord. Okay, this is the landlord's decision, not the government's. Once again, the government is getting involved in something that has nothing to do with them. Simply put, right, if a tenant decides they want to operate this business and they are doing things in a way that isn't up to code, isn't up to snuff, right? Who's to say that this isn't going to fall back on the landlord? Who's to say that we're not the ones who are going to get sued by angry parents who aren't happy that, oh, well, your building, it wasn't safe for this sort of purpose. Like, well, I wasn't renting it out for that purpose. The government forced me to be a child care provider. Goodness, why would they think that this is a good idea? This is a horrible idea. Just like I don't want any other type of, consumer business being operated out of my unit. Just like, do I want somebody using my unit as a manufacturing facility or as a kitchen, as you're operating a catering business? You know what? This is what I suggest, right? If a landlord wants to offer this thing to tenants where, you can use their house or their unit as a child care facility, then should be left up to the landlord. The landlord can then purchase the correct insurance, can get, the proper liability protections, etc. A lot of small landlords in particular own properties in their own personal name. And you know what? If they get sued, they have a chance of losing their personal assets to that lawsuit. And do you think that a person in that sort of situation wants to have a whole bunch of children running through there? I mean, come on. This is so dumb. I can't believe these lawmakers didn't even think about this for 1 second. They voted unanimously for this. I mean, did they even talk to anyone who, you know, is a landlord? Of course not. Of course not. They never talk to actual landlords when they're ever about to pass this sort of legislation because they don't want to hear any sort of opposing viewpoints. They don't want to hear that, hey, this isn't going to work, that this is going to be a huge problem for one reason, two reason, three reason, 100 different reasons. The only thing they want to hear is the idiotic nonsense they have going through their heads. Oh man, these politicians, they just anger me. They anger me so much. This bill is an important step to give more options for affordable childcare so that working families can stay in their communities, said Senator Dick Anderson, a Republican from Lincoln City, who is one of the bill's chief sponsors. The measure would also require childcare providers to obtain liability insurance. It would not apply to rental housing meant primarily for people age 55 and older. Home based care is an essential part of Oregon's child care marketplace, said Dana Hepper, who testified on behalf of Children's Institute, a Portland based advocacy group. Home based providers are more likely to provide care in the evenings, overnight, and weekends. They're more likely to provide care in languages other than English and in small rural communities that might not have the bandwidth to manage a larger child care center. Yeah, well, you know what? A home based provider, simply put, right? They have to follow all these certain different rules and regulations. And if the property itself doesn't meet those rules and regulations, yet they are still providing that service, well, that could easily fall back onto the landlord, the property owner. Okay. And for that reason, many landlords, they don't want to deal with it. I actually had tenants before, put in applications to rent some of my properties. And, they expressly showed, they were telling me, hey, I want to operate a home-based daycare out of your house, right? And I'm like, no, I do not allow that. I want traditional tenants in there. I do not want my house being used as a child care center because of the excessive wear and tear, etc., and the liability issues. But that makes no difference to these lawmakers. It makes none because they don't operate businesses. Okay, they don't actually have to cover any of this. They're not the ones who are going to get sued if things go wrong. They're not the ones who have to cover the losses that people are going to take. And it's wrong. It's wrong that they put these sort of proposals in place that force the hands of landlords who are just trying to operate their businesses. So this is my suggestion. If this sort of thing happens in Oregon, well, you know what? I've already made this suggestion about all of these places that are not landlord friendly, right? Don't invest there. If you own one, maybe two properties, you're a small mom and pop landlord, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to go through this sort of nonsense, okay? Sell that property to owner occupants. Or maybe you could just do short term rentals, but don't let the government dictate how you operate your business. Do not fall for this sort of scam. Okay, this is not a good proposal and it will only hurt landlords in the long run.